This is the last in a series of presentations reporting on the results of a pilot study on how system dynamics might be used to support the UK Department for International Development's aid for trade efforts. And it looks at some of the issues that would need to be addressed in using the method going forward. Previous presentations have explained the project background and how the trade system can be understood using this approach. We've explained how the portfolio of all trade improvement efforts can be organised using the method and provided a framework for planning, managing, monitoring and evaluating a whole programme of initiatives. We've also provided two examples of the method's use for specific initiatives, a training example and an effort to improve trade across a single land border. So now we're going to look at some of the issues that would need to be understood and tackled if the method is going to be used more widely. The first set of issues concern how the frameworks can actually be applied. And the first thing to say is that it is clearly much easier to apply the method for focused initiatives, a single intervention such as a training program for customs officials or an effort to cut documentation requirements, or a focused initiative aimed at improving trade across a single border or focused on a single product in a particular region of the country. So the method is definitely easier to use and very powerful indeed when applied to specific initiatives. But as we've shown in the first two presentations in the series, it's extremely valuable for organising our understanding and management of the whole picture as well. The next issue in applying the frameworks is to consider how much of the method to use. In the previous two presentations, we've shown that the frameworks can be used in a purely manual fashion, sketching the data we have or targets that we have for improving things into the future on diagrams and charts and supporting those manual diagrams with simple spreadsheet analysis. We've also shown that you can go on and use software to make that task easier and even to develop fully working models to allow you to simulate policy before you actually try and do it. Lastly, there is a set of decisions to consider about how far you want to take this. You could simply use the method for planning a program or a single initiative at the start and then just go back to normal processes for managing and monitoring that program as you go forward. Or you can carry the same frameworks and models through into the monitoring effort. Or you could go further still and use those frameworks and models to help you actually manage and adapt the program or any particular initiative continually as you go through. So in the light of information about how your initiative is going or how your program is going, you look back at the decisions you're taking and you adjust those decisions in the light of new information. But it's important to remember that the aim we're pursuing is to substantially improve the system's performance. We want to get better outcomes faster out of the initiatives and out of the program of initiatives that we and other aid partners are pursuing. There are practical issues in applying the method. First of all, particularly in developing country situations, there will be an issue that we simply don't have the data. Well, we make decisions all the time without perfect information about things, and what we do is we use our best informed estimates as to what we think those numbers actually are. And we, in particular, can lean on the experience from people who are familiar with this case and with other cases to give us their best estimates as to what they think is going on. And of course, once you actually start and you know what the framework is that you're trying to use to make your decisions and policy well, you can design simple data collection systems into your projects. And that allows you to adapt the frameworks and adapt the models as you learn. The relationships in the model are not always very clear. What exactly is the impact of border delays, for example, on the behaviour of would-be traders in terms of deciding how often to trade, deciding whether to bother at all? And once again, we can use the experience of people who've been involved in this kind of situation before to estimate those relationships. Other relationships in the model are simply arithmetical. For example, the number of people crossing a border over a particular period is the number of people who trade in general multiplied by the frequency with which they do so. And again, we improve our understanding of those relationships by checking the information that comes in on the actual performance compared with what we thought was going to happen. There are two other things that make the use of this method slightly tricky, but we can deal with both of these. The first is that there are tipping points in all such cases. What we mean by a tipping point is that behavior changes in a discontinuous way when two trajectories cross. So if you've got increasing demand to get across a border and the border has a limit as to how much demand it can cope with, everything will be fine up to the point where that demand crosses that capacity limit. When it crosses that capacity limit, then problems will arise, you'll get delays happening and people give up attempting to trade. So you get that kind of discontinuity when those tipping points arrive. And we can find where tipping points like that are likely to arise by looking at other cases or crises that happen in other situations. The last issue is that what we will discover almost certainly is that there will be binding constraints, that we can push all we like on initiatives A, B and C, but actually the situation isn't going to move at all because it's actually factor D that is the problem. So opening more border posts, building more roads to get people to those border posts or ports won't do anything if the actual constraint is that there simply aren't enough customs officials to process people through those ports and borders. There are issues to do with the process by which these frameworks and models are developed. First of all, they are complicated by external factors. So trading behavior also reflects market conditions. So what is the price for the commodity that people want to export in the markets across the border? How constrained are we by the development of enterprise that are actually able to produce these goods? You know, if you are making it easier to export groundnuts, for example, but actually it's very difficult for anyone to get started as a groundnut producer, then you can improve the export trade situation all you like, nothing's going to happen. So what we would need to do is extend the frameworks where necessary, probably to include not just the export of the product, but also the production side and the markets into which products are being exported. That brings up the issue about where exactly to stop. In principle, you could keep on extending these frameworks and models indefinitely, but the simple answer is that you stop at the point where you've got enough confidence from the framework and the model that you can make reliable decisions and choices about what to do. And if you decide later that you actually do need to develop the frameworks and models further, then you can make that decision at a later point in time. And the last process issue to emphasize is that it really does need to be a team-based approach. This pilot project that we've undertaken illustrates the opportunity, and during that pilot we've taken care to consult with knowledgeable parties and build in some of their insights into the frameworks and models that we've presented. But any real project must be done with those people who are actually involved in the situation and bring in all of the diverse expertise that you need in order to build confident and reliable frameworks and models for this kind of planning and management. Now, although there are practical and process issues in using this approach for helping with aid for trade initiatives, it should be said that those issues are going to arise for any other approach that you might try to take to improve the management of these efforts in any case. But what this method does, if those issues are addressed, is it provides substantial benefits. First of all, it can significantly improve the planning both of initiatives or whole programs of initiatives in the first place, because what it does is it provides a truly holistic view of how any initiative or program of initiatives actually work. And it shows all of the causal linkages in the pipeline from inputs, activities and outputs to the outcomes and beneficial impacts that you're trying to deliver. And it does that because it deals head on with the system's real complexity. What it allows is for you to test and compare alternative policy options before you decide on your choice amongst those alternatives. And when you've done that, what you end up with is a very clear view of what's going to be done, when it's going to be done, how much, and how all of those things are going to change over time as the initiative or the program moves forward into the future. It then goes on to offer the prospect of better delivery, because you've got a continual comparison of what's actually happening compared with what you hoped in your plan would happen. You can see the differences as they emerge, and you can see not only those differences, but the causal reasons why those differences are happening. They may be disappointing differences, so you're making slower progress on a particular outcome than you might like, or it might be a favourable divergence where things are going better than you expected, and you can push harder and accelerate still further the good things that you're trying to do. And as you can see those differences emerge and the reasons for those differences, that allows you to change your overall plans and change specific decisions in the light of what that information is telling you. And the last major benefit is it offers much improved coordination of efforts. The frameworks we've described in these presentations and the working models that we've illustrated can be very easily shared amongst project partners in a single initiative or in a single program for a single agency. And those frameworks and models deal very explicitly with the interdependence between different initiatives being pursued by multiple agencies. And you can go still further and include links to related efforts. It's all very well improving the mechanisms to allow export trade, but if you aren't enabling the development of private enterprise, or you're not helping in the development of markets into which to trade, then those trade efforts alone will struggle to make progress. So as I say, you can coordinate amongst initiatives in the trade arena, but also coordinate with initiatives in other important domains. So in terms of taking this project forward, we're currently in discussion about how it can be used for planning the current 5-year program for DFID interventions in Nigeria, and how to build the frameworks and methods into the monitoring, adaptation and evaluation of that program. And we're also looking at whether and how best to use the method for the planning and managing of individual initiatives. Essential to this will be gaining partner adoption of the approach, and that will only happen if those partners are involved in the development of the models and feel that it actually helps them in doing what they do as part of the program. So as I said, we need to involve them in developing the models and in selecting and designing the projects on which the models are used. And they also need to see some value from using the data that comes from their test projects and their initiatives in informing policy and decisions over the period of the program. Now, lastly, I should return to the point we made right at the first of these presentations, which is that there is a very large number of initiatives being undertaken to improve export trade volumes out of Nigeria and indeed out of other developing countries. And those initiatives are not just being done by the Department for International Development, they're being done by other aid agencies and supported by the World Bank and others. So there's likely to be some value from sharing both the understanding of this approach and the capability to use it with those other agencies. And we might use joint workshops and training for that purpose, and sharing the models of all of these programs amongst those agencies. So thank you for your attention to this series of presentations. I welcome comments, questions, and any other contributions that you might like to make by email to me. That's kim@strategydynamics.com. And there is an online discussion started on the LinkedIn system under the Strategy Dynamics network.